In this video, we're going to have a look at fractions as parts of a shape. So we're going to look at shapes which have been split into equal parts or non-equal parts and understand the link between that and fractions in order to picture what fractions actually are. Without a calculator, pause the video and do these questions. Press play once you've done them. You should have now done these questions without a calculator. So let's go through them. Please mark your work as we go through. So what is another way of writing 4 divided by 3? Well, this whole topic here is fractions. 4 divided by 3 is the same as 4 over 3. A fraction is just a division. It's the top number divided by the bottom number. It's the numerator divided by the denominator. What does 7/8 mean? Well, 7 over 8, that means 7 divided by 8. And the number on the top is called the numerator, and the number on the bottom is called the denominator. So those are questions 1, 2, and 3. Denominator. Please pause the video to make sure that you've fully marked those 3 questions. Press play once you've marked and corrected them. You should have now marked and corrected questions 1, 2, and 3. Question 4. Which of these fractions has an odd numerator? So the numerator is the top number on a fraction. So these are the numerators. And the only one which has an odd numerator is 5/8. 4 and 2 are both even numbers. 5 is the only odd numerator there. This shape, so let's count how many parts it's been split up into. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've made a little dot in each part so that I don't count a part twice and so that I don't miss out any parts. So there were 9 parts altogether. So that means that the shape has been split into 9 parts. So that's the denominator. What fraction of the shape is shaded? Well, how many of those parts are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of those parts are shaded. I put a second dot into each one to make sure I didn't count twice, to make sure I didn't miss any out. For the next one, what fraction of the shape is not shaded? So for the denominator, we do the same thing. We just count the number of shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And how many of those are not shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fraction of the shape that's not shaded is 5/8. Notice in both questions 5 and 6, each part of the shape was the same size. So those shapes have been split into equal parts. The circle in question 5 has been split into 9 equal parts. The parallelogram in question 6 has been split up into 8 equal parts. So that's why we can do it in this simple way. If the shape was not split into equal parts, it would be more complicated, and we'll do that later. Please pause the video to mark and correct your work. Press play once you've done that. You should have now marked and corrected your work. So we're now going to look at shaded parts when you've got more than one of the thing. So here I've actually got 3 holes, 3 whole squares. Each of those squares has been split into 4 parts. So I've got 1 hole here, and here I've got another hole. And then here I've got 2 shaded out of 4. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2 of those are shaded, so that's 2 over 4. So altogether, what fraction is shaded? Well, I've got 2 holes, so I write that as a whole number. And then I've got the fraction 2 over 4. That means 2 and 2/4. So when we write 2 and then next to it 2 over 4, that means 2 and 2/4. So 2 plus 2/4. We call this a mixed number because it's made up of a whole number, an integer, and a fraction. It's got a whole number and a fraction. That makes it a mixed number. Now there's another way to do this. There's another possible way of writing the correct answer. So what we do is we say, well, it's split into quarters. So each shape has been split into 4 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each shape has been split into 4 equal parts. So each of those parts is a quarter. How many of those quarters are there altogether? How many of those parts are there altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 altogether. 10 quarters, or 10 over 4. That is also the correct answer. Both of those are actually identical. 2 and 2 quarters means exactly the same as 10 over 4. They are the same thing. But whereas we call 2 and 2 quarters a mixed number, this thing here, 10 over 4, we call it an improper fraction. Not improper, improper. And that means that the number on the top is bigger than the number on the bottom. What do we call the number on the top? Say your answer to the video. You should have said the numerator. What do we call the number on the bottom? Say your answer to the video. You should have said the denominator. So an improper fraction is something where the numerator is bigger than, so I'm going to do the bigger than symbol, the denominator. So the numerator, I'm going to do that underneath again, just to make it clearer. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. That makes it an improper fraction. So a fraction where the top number was smaller than the bottom number would be a proper fraction. So for example, over here, this 2 quarters, that is a proper fraction. So to summarize what we've learned in this example, we've learned that a proper fraction is where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So 2 is less than 4. We've learned that a improper fraction is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. And we've learned that a mixed number is when you've got a whole number and a fraction added together. So 2 and 2 quarters is a mixed number. And for this kind of question where you need to find what fraction is shaded and there's more than one whole shape, you can either give your answer as a mixed number or an improper fraction. They are both correct. So in this question, we had 2 wholes and 2 quarters. So I wrote the answer as 2 and 2 quarters. But we also had 10 quarters. So I wrote 10 over 4. Both of those answers are correct. Let's do another example. We're going to do this one together. So pause the video and write down what you think is the shaded fraction here. Give 2 answers. I want one answer as a mixed number and one answer as an imperfect fraction. So I want one answer as a mixed number and I want one answer as an imperfect fraction. Pause the video while you do that. Press play once you're ready. So you should have now had a go at this question. So let's do it together. So first, as a mixed number, I'm going to do that in red. So this is a whole shaded shape. Here is another whole shaded shape. This one is split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but only 3 parts are shaded. So that is 3/8. So altogether, I've got 2 and 3/8. You don't need to write the and, you don't need to write a plus, you just write 2 and then 3/8 next to it. That means 2 and 3/8. As an imperfect fraction, we still put, and I'm going to do this in purple, we still put the 8 on the bottom because these circles are still split into 8 equal parts. Each of those parts is an eighth. And then we just count how many complete eighths are there between the whole thing. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There's 19 altogether. Both of those answers are correct. 2 and 3/8 and 19 over 8 are both the shaded part of this diagram. Pause the video to mark your work. Press play once you're ready. You should have now marked and corrected your work. If you struggled with either of these examples, go back in the video, watch them again, and then move on once you're ready. You should now be ready to move on. Pause the video to do this independent practice. Press play once you've done it. You should have now done this independent practice. I'm now going to go through it. Please mark and correct your work as I go through it. So for the first one, we have 3 wholes and then a third. So that's 3 and a third. And that can also be written as 10 over 3. For question 2, we have 1 whole and then 2 quarters. That can be written also as 6 over 4. So there's 6 shaded parts altogether. For the next one, we have 2 wholes and 1 half, or 5 halves. And for the final one, we have 4 wholes and 3/5, So altogether, that is the same as 23 fifths. Pause the video to mark and correct your work. Press play once you've marked and corrected it. You should have now marked and corrected your work. We're now going to have a look at this question here. So I'm going to do this question fully by myself. So here, this shape is still split into two parts. This is part one, and this is part two. But they are not equal in size. So therefore, we cannot say that this shape is half shaded. Just because one part in two is shaded does not mean that it's half shaded, because those parts are not equal in size. So what we need to do is we need to split the shape into parts that are equal in size. So we have a look at the shaded part and we can see that it's a square, which is about a quarter. Well, in fact, it's exactly a quarter of the whole square. So if we just add that and that, now it's split into equal parts. How many equal parts are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 equal parts. How many of them are shaded? 1. So the correct answer is 1/4. So what I did when the parts were unequal is I changed the diagram. I added to the diagram to make it so that I have equal parts. And then I could count what amount of those equal parts was shaded and how many equal parts were there altogether. Remember, the number on the denominator is the total number of equal parts. So that's how many equal parts the shape has been split up into. And the number at the top is the number that are shaded. Let's do another example. I'm going to do this one fully myself. So it might be difficult at first to kind of spot how to split this shape up so that every single part is equal in size. But actually, I just need to draw one line. I just draw one line here. And there we go. I now have 8 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I put 8 on the bottom. And how many of them are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/8. For those of you who are already a bit more advanced in this, that is the same as a half. But for now, we're just going to write it as 4/8. If you found either of those examples difficult, go back, watch them again, carry on once you're ready. You should now be ready to move on. We're going to do this example together. So pause the video, have a go, press play once you've had a go. So you should have had a go at this problem now. This one's quite tricky because trying to work out how to split it into equal parts is difficult. The trick is to do this. Suddenly we have 4 equal triangles. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means there's 4 parts altogether, so that goes on the denominator. 3 of them are shaded, so the answer is 3/4. Well done if you got that right. That one was tricky. We're now going to move on to one more example. Pause the video, have a go at answering the question, what fraction of this shape is shaded? Press play once you're ready. You should have now had a go at this. What proportion of this shape or what fraction of this shape is shaded? So at the moment, there's triangles and rectangles, but what we can do is we can split every single rectangle in half in a way which means that we now have lots of equal triangles. Now my lines aren't straight, but if they were and they were exactly diagonal down the middle, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 equal parts. Each of those triangles is 1 part. How many of those are shaded? I'm going to do that in red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of those are shaded. So my final answer is 8/18, 8/18. You're now going to do some independent practice. Pause the video to do these questions. Press play once you've done them all. You should have now done all of these questions. We're going to go through them now. So for question 1, we first had to split the shape up into equal parts by doing this. There were now 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. 1 of them is shaded. 1/4 of the shape is shaded. Question 2, we had to add 1, 2, 3, 4. We had to put those vertical lines in the other half of the shape as well. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. That goes on the denominator. 1 of them is shaded. 1/8 of the shape is shaded. Question 3 is another tricky one. I've not done that right. Apologies. By doing one vertical line over here, that splits the shape into 3 equal parts. It's quite tricky to see, but that would be 3 equal parts. The reason why I know that that's 3 equal parts and not 4 is because if it was 4, this angle here would be a right angle. If you split circle into 4 equal parts, those 2 lines cross at right angles. So these would all be right angles. So the fact that this angle over here is not a right angle shows me that it's bigger. So that means it's split into 3, not split into 4. And how many of those are shaded? 2. So the answer is 2 over 3. For the next one, I can see that the shape has been split either into 3 parts or 4 parts. So a good thing to do here would be to get a ruler and just measure exactly what's going on. So if I use my ruler, I can see that actually it's been split into 3 parts, not into 4. So draw that line. There's 3 parts altogether. 1, 2, 3. How many are shaded? Just 1. So it's 1 over 3. Finally, you might be able to see with question 5 that it's half that's shaded. But just to make it really clear, draw a line here. There are 4 equal parts. How many of those equal parts are shaded? 1, 2. So 2 over 4. Pause the video to mark and correct your work. Press play once you've done that. You should have now marked and corrected your work. We're now going to try and shade fractions of a shape ourselves. So I'm going to do this one myself. So it says shade 9/16 of this shape. So I'm just going to check, has this shape actually been split into 16 equal parts? And if I quickly count, yes, it has. So it's been split already into 16 equal parts. And I now just need to shade 9 of them. So I'm going to shade 9 equal parts. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't matter which 9 parts we shade, as long as we shade 9 out of the 16. So that's how we shade 9/16 of that shape. I'm going to do this example too. So this example says shade 5/4 of the diagram, 5 over 4. Well, each of these circles has been split into 4 parts. So I am dealing with quarters here. I'm dealing with fourths, quarters. I need to shade 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, as a little bit of an extension, pause the video and write down what fraction is shaded as a mixed number. Press play once you've done that. You should have now written down what fraction of this diagram is shaded as a mixed number. And the answer is, there's 1 whole and then another quarter. So the answer is 1 1/4. So 1 1/4 is exactly the same as, or exactly equivalent to, 5 over 4. They mean the same thing. I'm going to do this example now. It says shade 2 5/6 of the diagram. So I need to shade 2 holes to start with. So I'm going to shade 2 of these hexagons completely. And then 5/6. So each hexagon is split into 6 parts. I need to shade 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's 2 5/6. Again, I want you to write down what fraction of the diagram is shaded as a improper fraction. Pause the video while you do that. Press play once you're ready. You should have now written down what fraction of this diagram is shaded as an improper fraction. So if we count all together, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And each part is a sixth. So 17/6 or 17 over 6. So again, 17 over 6 is exactly the same as 2 5/6. They mean the same thing. Please pause the video to do these questions. Press play once you've done them. You should have now done these questions. I'm now going to go through them. So 7/4. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Question 2, 9/3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's actually the same as 3 holes. For question 3, 2 4/6. So 2 holes and another 4 over 6. So another 4/6. And finally, shade 1 3/4. So I'll shade a hole and then another 3/4. Pause the video to mark and correct your work. Press play once you've done that. You should have now marked and corrected your work. So in this video, we've looked at fractions of shapes, and we've gone both ways. We said here is a shape and it's shaded. What fraction is shaded? We did equal parts and non-equal parts. And finally, we shaded shapes ourselves. While doing that, we learned the difference between a proper fraction, an improper fraction, and a mixed number. The last thing I'd like you to do is write down an example of each of these three things. Pause the video while you do that. Press play once you're ready. You should have now written down an example of a proper fraction, of an improper fraction, and of a mixed number. For your proper fraction, there's infinite possibilities for what you could have written down, but as long as your numerator, that's the number on the top, is bigger than your denominator, that would be wrong. As long as your number on the top is smaller than your denominator, it's a proper fraction. So check your proper fraction. If the top number is smaller than the bottom number, you've done that correct. For the improper fraction, it's the other way around. So the number on the top, the numerator, needs to be bigger than the denominator. So for your improper fraction, if your number on the top is bigger than the number on the bottom, you've got that right. And finally, for the mixed number, you need to have a whole number, doesn't matter what that is, and then a proper fraction with it. So check this one carefully. Have you got a whole number? And have you written next to it a proper fraction? That means that this fraction over here, I've shaded in yellow, has to be a proper fraction. So the numerator, the number on the top, has to be less than the denominator, the number on the bottom. As long as you've done that, that is a mixed number. So check, have you got a whole number? Have you got a proper fraction? Have you written them next to each other without using the word and, without using the symbol plus? If you've done that correct. I hope this video was useful. Please like and subscribe for more videos on Key Stage 3 Maths.